Good morning. I'm Jeanne Marsh, the Dean of the School of Social Service Administration, and it's my very great pleasure to welcome you this morning to the school and to thank you for being here, and especially to thank our distinguished mayor. I'd also like to acknowledge Arnie Duncan, Chief Executive Officer of the Chicago Public Schools, who is a dedicated visiting committee member at the School of Social Service Administration. And thank as well our distinguished Alderman, Willie Cochran, who is here and who is so supportive of the school and the university. I'd also like to thank this distinguished group of university faculty members, including Jens Ludwig and Harold Pollack of the School of Social Service Administration, who have worked so hard to develop this violence prevention initiative that we will talk about today. This year, the School of Social Service Administration will celebrate its 100th year. For more than 100 years, the faculty of the University of Chicago and of the School of Social Service Administration have worked in concentrated ways on some of society's most pressing problems, and through a collective effort have designed and tested solutions to those problems. What you will hear about today are ideas from faculty whose work range from economics to psychiatry. SSA faculty, university faculty, despite widespread belief, do not reside in an ivory tower, but rather are intimately connected with the world, with the Chicago community, and are committed to take on the difficult tasks of real-world issues such as gang violence. We also welcome today the support of the civic philanthropy community in Chicago, who have stepped up to support this very important effort. And we welcome those of you in the media for helping us get the word out about this important work. So please, everyone, join me in welcoming our distinguished Mayor Richard M. Daley. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dean Marsh. I want to thank her for her wonderful commitment here at the School of Social Services Administration, not only to our city, but to our country and the world. And I deeply appreciate the commitment you have made over many, many years about many of the social issues confronting people throughout the world. And we're really proud of the School of Social Service Administration here at the University of Chicago. And we're here with many officials from the Chicago Public Schools, Arnie Duncan, of course, Vance Henry from CAPS, and Jody Weiss, Superintendent of the Chicago Police, and of course, Father Mike Flager from the religious community, St. Sabina's. We have, as well as Alderman Willie Cochran from the 20th Ward, that has made a strong commitment of working with all of us in regards to the quality of life throughout this city. All across this nation, gun violence has reached epidemic levels as a challenge that must be addressed. I firmly believe over a number of years, the gun industry is the most protected industry in the country. We are protecting them from any lawsuits, more than local, state, or even federal governments. So they're much bigger than the federal government. They're much bigger than the state government. They're the only entity that's truly protected by federal law. Now let's think of that. That's how significant, and that's how significant they are in this country. We decided to protect them, and they're really above everyone else. Right. And to me, that is a disgrace in 2008 that the gun industry truly owns this country. It owns it in all aspects, and the amount of violence that we see through guns on a daily basis is unspeakable, in the sense that it is damaging and killing our children on a daily basis. Yesterday, Mike Flager and Arnie Duncan and school students and parents went down to Springfield. And to hear adults talking about protecting the gun industry is really frightening. Well, we pledged to protect the gun industry. We have to protect them because we think it's a political issue and we're afraid of the voters. And that's the sense of America. And to me, it is not something that we truly should be proud of. Also, in the national debate, all candidates are silent on the issue. Right. It's really upsetting because everybody thinks that some way you're going to lose the election. if you talk about gun violence. And you can talk about, and it's very interesting, but there's where we are in 2008. And so what we see, and I've talked to other mayors recently, all across America, the victims and offenders are getting younger. It's just amazing. I mean, it's compared to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. If you see the pattern, the victims and offenders are getting much, much younger. And you see the influence of gang structure. You see the influence, of course, of drugs. And when you have those combination of things that taking place, then you see basically the loss of more and more children in our society. And we talk about those that are killed. We never, ever talk about those that are injured. That's the silent area. And you can talk to physicians and you can talk to people in the medical care, and they'll tell you how many gunshot wounds, head injuries, and spinal cord injuries we have in this country. That is a silent group. We don't even mention those, unfortunately, and we should point that out continually. It has destroyed someone's life. It's not only a crime issue, not only a family issue, it is really a health issue in the United States. And it's really amazing. I don't know why we can't get America, really upset with this issue. I know people are upset with smoking. I mean, if someone sits next to you in a bar or restaurant and smokes, I mean, you're visibly upset. You call the mayor, you call inspectors, you call the police department. Please don't do this to me. Guns? Someone can carry a gun, I guess. It doesn't upset anybody anymore. It's amazing. And so I don't know where we are in regards to the issues. But from my viewpoint, as a public official, as a private citizen, I've always viewed that guns are unnecessary in our society, in our homes. We have room for those who are hunters and gun collectors, but to see the amount of guns that prevail in society, it's a very, very sad comment. And like anything else, all of us are outraged by the violence that continues to take the lives of children. At the very time that we reach historic lows in homicide rates, we see that homicides going down, murder rates going down, but we see the victims and the offenders, the young people, are now basically part of that homicide. A great influence, a great upheaval in the violence. Our schools are working very hard. The police community is, the community at large is, the police, religious organizations have gone to Washington. You're ultimately going to Washington, Springfield, asking for common sense gun laws. But we must do more, and I really believe that, for our streets, our sidewalks, our schools, our parks, to keep them safe, and of course our homes. And we cannot accept any type of violence against one child. And keeping our children safe is a challenge and our shared responsibility. I talk of responsibility. Government must do its part, but as most people appreciate, government can't protect every child every hour of the day. I wish we could. Every parent or parents must also do their part, or loved ones. It's not always an easy job to be a parent, but we all know that a responsible adult can truly make a difference in a child's life, and we see that continually. I am concerned that we live in a society that seems to downplay the importance of parental responsibility, underestimates the positive impact that a responsible adult, whether parent or grandparent or others, can have on the direction of a child's life. At the same time, every community and religious organization must also keep doing their part, provide the safe havens and positive after-school programs that our children need to keep them occupied, especially when they're not in school, weekdays and weekends. And every Chicagoan must continue to rise up in anger against the gangs and drugs who don't respect or value our life. They need to report crimes and criminals. They need to turn in illegal guns. Or if there's a gun in your home, please call someone and say, I want to turn that gun in for my home. Community silence, and I say that underlining, community silence means only more death and despair in that family and in that block and that community. Over the last year, our city has come together to denounce and develop new ways to prevent violence against our children. But this is a very, very complex challenge. Years ago, we pioneered a program which emphasized the importance of having a responsible adult in a child's life. It's called the SOS Children's Village. It was built on an abandoned industrial site in the Auburn-Gresham neighborhood. It's a unique community for foster children that brings brothers and sisters together in a permanent home headed by professional foster parents. The SOS Children's Village is an effort to give structure and guidance to children who might otherwise be vulnerable to gang and drug activity. As such, it's been a tool to help us understand the core of youth violence. Another example is the Juvenile Intervention Support Center, whose Executive Director, Chris Mallette, is with us today. And in this program, the city provides an alternative for at-risk youth who have already committed offenses. It includes community service work, counseling, and other supportive services. But the violence continues. We must ask ourselves, what more can we do? What are the root causes of this violence? What new steps can we take to prevent it from happening in the first place? Why do younger people think it's okay to settle a dispute with a gun in the middle of the afternoon? And that's why I want to announce today that as a partnership with the University of Chicago and other members of the local philanthropic community, we will undertake a study of youth violence and why it happens. What are the factors in the home that are important to understand? Which programs work, which don't? What new strategies can we implement to reduce and prevent violence against our children? The study will involve some of the leading scholars in the field of crime, public policy, economics, sociology, public health, youth development, as well as family and education policies. Once they have developed a series of intervention policies in the next few months, they will implement them on a pilot basis throughout the city, using private funding to be secured by the University of Chicago and myself. Our goal is to have the first pilot program be ready this summer, which is truly important. Chairing the committee will be Jeanne Ludwig, Professor of Social Service Administration, Law and Public Policy, a leading authority of crime and social policy. Associate Professor Harold Pollack in the School of Social Service Administration, who is a prominent public health policy researcher. University of Chicago scholars on the project include Jeffrey Goger, Professor of Urban Policy, Jonathan Goranin, Associate Professor of Graduate School of Business, Stephen Levitt, Professor of Economics, John List, Professor of Economics as well, Thomas Miles, Assistant Professor in Law, Charles Payne, Professor in the School of Social Service Administration, Diane Whitmore Schoenbeck, Assistant Professor in the Harris School of Public Policy Studies. Other team members include Philip Cook, Professor of Public Policy Studies at Duke University, Jennifer Hill, Assistant Professor of International Public Affairs at Columbia University, Brian Jacob, Professor of Education Policy, University of Michigan, Tracy Mears, Professor of Law at Yale University, Dennis Rosenbaum, Professor of Criminal Justice Psychology at the University of Illinois, Chicago. In addition, we will be asking parents of children at risk to gang violence to weigh in and point us towards the problem areas that we need to be addressed, as well as younger people. After being tested in these pilot programs, the study group findings will enable us to add new steps, new strategies in our citywide effort to end youth violence. We have strengthened law enforcement on the city's curfew. We've installed safety cameras in public schools, additional police patrols near our schools. We started Kids Start After School Matters, which involve hundreds of thousands of children in constructive activities. I believe these efforts have kept many, many children from being exposed to violence or being an offender or a victim. It is more clear than ever that we must step up our efforts to keep our children occupied during the after-school hours from 5 or 6 o'clock until 10 o'clock, when our city's expanded curfew begins at weeknights. The problem is that we don't have the funding to provide these positive, constructive programs for every hour of the week after school ends and before the curfew begins. There's where our churches and our community groups must have an important part. It's during these hours, after they left their school, after-school programs, when our children seem to be least occupied and are most vulnerable in our society. Further, several years ago, our schools began the Safe Haven Parent Patrol, Safe Passage program to keep our children safe as they go to and from school. They've done a very good job, but they can do better. I challenge all of our school leaders to strengthen these programs before the summer and the next school year begins. And year after year, we submit our gun legislation. Mike Flager was there yesterday with many people and Arnie Duncan to Springfield to help and ease easy access to guns in Illinois. Today, we're asking the same question. What more can all the people of our city do to prevent violence against all of our children. Today, we have with us not only our experts from the university, but other professionals and community members who are going to share with us their thoughts about the violence of them dealing with on an everyday basis. I know they agree with me that every Chicagoan has a responsibility to protect all of our children, from our schools, the Chicago Police Department, to our parents, community, and religious groups. We owe it to our children to get to the bottom of violence and why is it happening in the first place, and what more we can do and think outside the box that we've never thought outside before. Our commitment is to give every child the same opportunity to succeed and reach their potential in life. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Jens Ludwig from the University of Chicago. Mayor Daley and other members of the Chicago community, thank you all for being here today to address the challenge of youth gun violence in our city. While this issue has not received much attention at the national level, I want to say how much I appreciate Mayor Daley's concern and leadership in addressing the issue, and for the mayor's enthusiasm for this new collaboration that we're here to announce today. This collaboration would not be possible without the energy and leadership shown by Michael Masters in the mayor's office, or the support that we received here at the University of Chicago from Provost Thomas Rosenbaum, SSA Dean Jeanne Marsh, Dean Susan Mayer of the Harris School, Steve Gilmore, Sabrina Youssef, and everyone here at SSA whose hard work has made today's event possible. We're also lucky to be able to draw on such an incredibly talented team of researchers that were listed by Mayor Daley. Many members of our team have been able to join us here today, including Harold Pollack, Jeff Grogger, Dennis Rosenbaum, John List, and Steve Levitt. And the newest member of our team, not listed by Mayor Daley, Kerwin Charles of the Harris School, who couldn't be here today due to illness. Youth gun violence is a problem for everyone in Chicago, but especially for the most economically disadvantaged members of our community. We often hear from low-income children and parents that gun violence is one of their top concerns. We should all, in my view, make violence prevention a much more important part of our discussions about how to address the problem of poverty more generally. We have two primary goals for the new collaboration that we are announcing today. One goal is to prevent youth from engaging in violent behavior in the first place. We want to help steer youth towards productive activities like schooling and work and away from behaviors like crime and gang involvement that put them at elevated risk for violence, offending, or victimization. Our second goal is motivated by the fact that gun involvement makes violence much more dangerous. We want to take guns out of the equation when youth violence does occur to make it less lethal. Our research team is working with the city to identify a set of interventions that might help achieve both goals. We will then seek support for these interventions from the local philanthropic community. Our ideas are guided by the principle that people, even teenagers, respond to incentives, but that they may also sometimes need extra supports. We envision a broad set of strategies for youth violence prevention that would include efforts to promote positive youth development, as well as more traditional criminal justice-oriented interventions designed to deter, restrain, or rehabilitate youthful offenders. Much of what we propose builds on the activities that the city is already initiating. What is really new about this project is that all of the interventions we propose will be implemented within the context of a very rigorous research design. Cities all across America are constantly launching new pilot programs to address the youth violence problem. But these innovations are almost never done in a way that allows them to be rigorously evaluated. As a result, the research base about what really works in this area is surprisingly, disappointingly, maybe even alarmingly limited. As a result of this project, we will launch several interventions that we will hope will directly reduce the number of young people who are injured by gunfire here in Chicago. We also hope to generate important new knowledge that sheds light on the causes of youth gun violence and what really works to address this problem, which should be helpful to city leaders not just here in Chicago, but all across the country and even around the world. On behalf of the University of Chicago side of this partnership, let me thank Mayor Daley once again for his enthusiasm and vision for this project, and say that all of us here at the university are very eager to get to work. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to introduce the next speaker now, Dr. Carl Bell, a member of the Chicago Board of Health.
Thank you. I bring you greetings from Chicago Board of Health. It's Commissioner Dr. Terry Mason. And as a member of the Board of Health and having done this work since '84, we understand this problem of youth violence is not new. We saw this back in '99. There was a spike. And in fact, Mayor Daley was the head of the mayor's conference, and we had a chance to talk about some of the strategies with the mayor of Detroit, Boston, and a few other people. And as a result, we saw the homicide rates in Chicago go from about 1,000 down to about 450, which it currently is. So we've seen this problem before. In 2001, Dr. Satcher released 20 years of youth violence research. And Mayor Daley, of course, when we were together in April, had conversations and had worked with Dr. Satcher. So there's a lot of answers there. In addition, more recently in 2007, the Centers for Disease Control released a meta-analysis of 53 youth violence programs. So we've had this problem before, and the city of Chicago has solved this problem before. What you need to do to prevent these sorts of issues is you've got to have good evidence that what works, which the University of Chicago team is going to help develop and improve upon. You've got to have a way to do it, and you've got to have political will. And that's what we're all here about, is generating the political will. One last thing about public health that we got to understand. It's like driving a car to New York and you got your foot on the gas and you're doing like 80 and you're getting there real good, and you're getting there so good that you take your foot off the gas. And then you're wondering why you're not getting there anymore. And so we've got to re-strengthen our efforts to deal with this youth violence issue. Because again, we have solved it before and we can solve it again. Next, I presume I'm supposed to introduce, per this list, Dr. Kimberly Joseph, attending physician at Stroger Hospital.
Good morning. I'm here this morning representing the trauma unit at Cook County Stroger Hospital, but also the Chicago Committee on Trauma and the Chicago Metropolitan Trauma Society, which are organizations that consist of doctors and nurses and other trauma health professionals who are committed to the advancement of trauma care. And one of the advancements that we have to talk about, if we're going to talk about making trauma care better, is prevention. Now, I was asked to speak to you about what we see in emergency departments and trauma units in the Chicago area. And it would be very easy to talk to you about dramatic and catastrophic injuries that we see every day in this setting, but that's not what really is relevant to this discussion. This discussion is about the intangible things that we see as healthcare providers. It's the post-traumatic stress that our patients experience after they have got a spinal cord injury or an amputation or have a catastrophic intestinal injury that makes it impossible for them to eat for a year. That's what we're talking about today. And we're talking about the stress that the families incur as a result of this. And the young children whose older brothers and sisters are the direct victims of violence, but who are also victims of violence because they're exposed to it and because they are also dealing with the stress and the fearfulness and the lack of a feeling of safety and an uncertainty about how to handle this new stress in their lives. That's really what this discussion is about today, and that is also what we see as healthcare professionals. One of the medical facts is that if you are under the age of 44, the most likely cause of your dying in this country is some form of injury. That's a medical fact. Another medical fact is that diseases are transmitted via vectors. One of the important vectors, regardless of what your political affiliation or perspective is, one of the vectors for the transmission of the disease of violent injury is the firearm. We ignore this at our own peril. It is not something that is unique to a particular ethnicity or socioeconomic class. It's not something that is unique to a particular urban or rural area. Suicide rates are increasing. Homicide rates appear to have stabilized, although the most recent data suggests that they are also on the uptick again. We ignore this vector at our own peril. And so we in the trauma community are supportive of any effort or any intervention that would allow us to come up with ways that work, that prevent the further incidence of violent injury in our city and in our country. Thank you very much.
And the next person who will be joining us at the podium is Chris Mallette, Executive Director, Juvenile Intervention and Support Center. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. The JISC is an initiative here in the city of Chicago that was started approximately 2 years ago, and it's a collaboration between the police department, the Department of Children and Youth Services, CAPS, the Chicago Public Schools, Cook County Juvenile Court. It's a number of partners, but it's the only place that I can think of in the entire city or the state where you have city, county, and state agencies all working together with the same mission. And that mission is to see what can we do to intervene once young people are arrested and have a first brush or a first contact with the juvenile justice system. So we're looking at diverting as many young people as we can where appropriate after that first arrest or that initial arrest on misdemeanor charges. Where do we divert them? We try to divert them to reconnect them. Some of the positive impact that we've seen so far is we're innovative in the sense that we don't just send them home with their parents or send them to court or send them to the detention center, but some young people who probably should be going to court, if it's appropriate, we try to divert them into holistic case management. So we work with a social service unit. We have social workers and case managers from Sinai Community Institute that work with us. We're open 24 hours, 7 days a week, and we take these young people. The problem that we always thought was that our young people are not connected and they're disconnected, but they are very much connected. Just many of them are connected to things we don't want them to be connected to. So how do we reconnect our youth to our communities? And notice I say our youth, not those communities, because every child has value, and that's the premise that we take. We also operate with under the philosophy of restorative justice, which is dealing with young people in particular in a corrective manner as opposed to a punitive manner, knowing that there's a small percentage, I think it's about 8%, less than 10% of young people commit more than 50% of juvenile crime nationally. That's a study by the Department of Justice. So we need to deal with the 8% a little bit differently than I think we deal with the 92%. But we often legislate and try to deal with all the kids the same way based on one anecdotal story or another one. But one of the things we've seen, and one thing that I can state to you, is the role of positive relationships with adults is critical here. It's the one thing that keeps coming up over and over and over again with our young people who are getting in trouble with the juvenile justice system. With regards to the positive youth development, connecting young people to positive adults is proven to work. It's proven to work more than anything else. So we're encouraging young people as they come to us to connect them with summer employment, to connect them with programs in their community so we can reconnect them in their own communities as well. And I'd like to introduce now, I have the great privilege to introduce our youth speakers, Angelica Gonzales and Mirta Ramirez. They are students at the Computer Science Charter School.
As a student, I don't want to have to worry about my safety. I'd like to feel safe. And I'm very glad that Mayor Daley, our police officers, our community is getting so involved in helping us out.
At times, going and coming from school, I don't always feel safe. I always got to look right behind my back. And it's like, I'm glad that now some people are more cracking down on making sure we're safe going to school. Like he said, like Mayor Daley said, putting more squad cars around the schools and helping us as students to feel safe.
Now I'd like to ask our distinguished Alderman, Willie Cochran, to give us final remarks. Oh, I'm sorry, are we missing a parent? Oh, please.
Okay.
Hi. Naisha Paramore.
Yeah, what's your name?
My name is Naisha Paramore. I am a parent in this community, and I have been a resident of this community for 30 years. Good morning, Mayor Daley and staff, Chicago Public School staff, parents, volunteers, and community. I have been asked to speak about the violence in our school and our community. It is important that as the Parent Patrol volunteer, how it has affected our community today. As we all know, this is a different era in which we live. In my opinion, having parent volunteers in the community will allow our children extra eyes and ears to look after them. I am a single parent of 4, and I applaud the positive impact on the parent volunteer demonstration. As we all know, the parents have distinguished jobs in being parents and mothers and fathers. And we need to make their children straight We need to make sure that our children go straight home from school. Unfortunately, a lot of parents don't have the luxury of becoming stay-at-home moms and fathers. Our children are the future, and we do not know where they're going when they get out of school. Addressing in the schools is responsibility for our parents, teachers, police, faculty, officials, and elected officers in our city. Speaking of society brings to mind another issue. The violence and the living that has been, and the lives that has been lost today in this school year. We want to see our children complete school and go off to college. But at this rate, we are fighting a losing battle, and something needs to be done now. We can start by a strong presence. It takes a village to raise a child. We are that village, and we need to stand together as a community. At this time, I would like to thank the Woodlawn Organization, the NCP CAPS, and the other volunteers and parents and partners that has put this program together. For all the hard work and dedication that they have provided to our community, I would like to especially thank Ms. Renita Alston and Lavisha Williams, who has been strongly instrumental partners to this program. Georgetta Lee Finley, who is a dynamic and dedicated leader, and Dr. Leon Finley, who is a long-standing figure and voice for improving quality of life in the Woodlawn area. The Woodlawn organization has partnered with the NCP and involved 5 schools with approximately 45 to 50 volunteer parents who has implemented the Volunteer Parent Patrol program. We are happy to receive this support and hope to receive additional resources to expand this program throughout the Woodlawn City. I hope that each and every one of you here today will commit to working together in this community to leave no child left behind. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. And I want to indicate that program, NCP program, is a community effort that involves not only TWO, it involves the Woodlawn Preservation and Investment Corporation, Apostolic, the University of Chicago, and community members in identifying a need in the area of safety and coming up with this solution involving parents to take on corners and patrol the streets, to bring kids back and forth as a way to address the safety issue and the comfort and the psychological impact that they have on children as they go into the schools. I want to thank Superintendent Jody Weeks for coming out. This is the first time he's been out into our community, and it's wonderful to have him out here, as well as Father Flager and the efforts that he's made. And we cannot do this thing that we are trying to do without academia involved. University of Chicago is an excellent resource for that. And yes, we do support them. And we support our mayor, who has made himself an advocate for the safety and the development of these communities all around Chicago. Not only around Chicago, the mayor hosted a global mayoral conference this year and a hemispheric mayoral conference. So we got a mayor who is not only a Chicago mayor, he's a mayor of the hemisphere. So I'm glad to serve under him, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. As pointed out, we recently had a conference of mayors from Canada, United States, Mexico, Central, in South America, in the islands. And the issue came up on youth violence, to be very frank. The same issues confronting us, it's there. We're having a conference very shortly, for the first time in America, of mayors from North Africa in the Middle East. It is the first time they'll be here as a conference, over 30 or 40. And of course, youth violence, again, is a #1 topic, dealing with cities, not just here in the United States, but all over the world. These issues are all the same. And we look forward to this wonderful research in the pilot program so we can share worthwhile programs and how we can prevent youth violence, not only in our city, but I truly believe around the world. And that's how we can share things with other mayors, both elected and appointed, throughout the world. Any questions? Pardon me? Sure. Well.
Yes. Mine? Nicholas Maldonado. Maldonado.
From your viewpoint, if they were to ask you, what is the problem? What's the issue? Why are we seeing this rise in violence among teenagers? In your world, what's going on?
What's going on is that there's people fighting for stuff that isn't theirs practically. They're fighting for territories. They're fighting for they're fighting for something that they want to call theirs, which isn't. There's like the gang violence. The gangs, they're fighting for their own territory, which they're fighting for something that they could call theirs.
And the guns, why are we seeing...
Well, I just want to make sure that it isn't the fault of our children. It's a fault of parents. It's a fault of adults. These are our children. It is the question should be confronted to every adult. What are you doing for your children? As a young man points out, it deals with gangs, it deals with drugs. And gangs and drugs have been around society for many years. And you have to ask those questions to adults. Why are they giving up responsibility? Why are they looking the other way? Why are they the silence in a community when something happens and everybody wants to be silent? This weekend we heard from Shrita Reed, was it? Was it? Denise Reed from Inglewood. And I never heard of it. She talked about her child getting killed by an AK-47 and how she goes to court and is sitting there. And she can't bring her children there, especially her boys, because they're confronting with the family of the offender sitting there. And she said, I feel like I'm on trial. I have to go home and I have to use counseling with my children because they're so upset that they can't go there, because they can't handle the emotional drama of the courtroom and what people say about her child. It's really interesting, and she comes from a perspective of a mother saying that the counseling and help she needs, just with her own children, to help her own children during the trial. Again, I think questions should be confronted to adults in every community.
What kind of programs are available to help parents improve their parenting skills, those parents that perhaps need some help, and what role is that going to play?
Well, that's an important role. That's what you have to look at. The other thing you have to look at, single mothers have been in every community. But when you come in a community, you take out of 40 homes, 35 or 30 are single mothers raising children. That's overwhelming now. And that's the other issues that are going to come to play. The number of children, the lack of a father in the household. That's all going to come to play. And I think it's really important to get the academic and research involved in this and look at juvenile court. Government sets up, procedures. We set up things, and sometimes they're very inflexible. They're set it up. You're put in this hallway, and you have to go this way. And many times government's not flexible. And you have to look at it. I point out many of your offenders were victims at earlier ages of crime against them. And then the same day, they're an offender in another courtroom. So you have to look at the child and what is the best interest of the child. In America, we always say, what is the best interest of the family? I disagree with that. We should have what is the best interest of the child now. I think that is one strong statement I've made. What is the best interest of the child? How can we truly protect that child at all stages? What can we do now to protect those children?
Mayor, how will you kind of go about this study? Who will be interviewed? How exactly what will be done here that will make it different than any of the other new things?
So we're starting planning a working group right now between the university and all of the representatives of the relevant city agencies. And at the University of Chicago, we think it's incredibly important that whatever gets done really reflects collaboration between the university and the city. And as part of this planning process, we're also going to reach out to the community. Our hope is that the distributed wisdom of what people know in the city can be brought to bear on the problem. And as you can imagine, we're looking around at other cities as well to try and learn what seems promising on the basis of other experiences.
But again, who will be interviewed? Who will be interviewed? How will you go about? How are you going to reach out to the community?
Well, that's easy. Well, we have many community people here. We have elected officials. We have religious leaders. We have business leaders. It's easy. They're around. The research people will talk to both victims, offenders. They will talk to children. They will talk to parents in every community. In other words, get a census of what we can accomplish together. It's not just in an ivory tower. And most importantly, is to once they can complete it, is to take the program in a pilot program and see its effect. Many times you run with programs or find out after a year, 2 years, it was not effective. And that is.
How will you measure that, though? I mean, how are you going to measure whether a program that you implemented this month was effective 3 months from now?
Yeah, no, that's. So this is what we're all about, is figuring out what actually works. And so we're going to focus on clear outcome measures that we all can agree we care about. The number of kids who were shot, the number of kids who are admitted to emergency departments, the number of kids who are arrested for carrying guns illegally. And we're going to look at whether the kids that we managed to serve, the schools that we managed to serve, the neighborhoods we managed to serve with these new pilot interventions have different outcomes than what we see in other areas or among other kids.
Give me an example of an intervention of a program that is.
Yeah, so because the planning process is still ongoing between the city and the university, I can't personally commit to what this is going to look like. The only thing that I would say is we really want to focus on the two strands of the things that I talked about. We want to focus on positive youth development, and we want to focus on keeping guns out of the hands of kids. And you can imagine that's going to draw on all of the city agencies that are part of this working group. It's going to involve the public schools. It's going to involve the police. It's going to involve after-school matters. It's going to involve Parks and Rec. This really is going to be a multifaceted effort to reach the two goals.
Who are you going to interview?
Yes. Yeah.
Mayor, what role do you see churches and religious organizations playing in this?
Well, I think they play an important role in regards to violence in our community and rebuilding families and rebuilding responsibility to adults. I think they have as much as responsibility as anyone else. And that's why Father Mike Flager is here, and others have really joined this effort in regards to youth violence and any type of violence in the community. They're part and parcel of this whole study and part and parcel of the city of Chicago. Oh, well, many things. First of all, I believe that as we find out that children are being lost, I think we have to start, each religious leader has to start talking to their congregation and find out, can they reach out to the community? Is there a lost child in the community? Is there a foster problem? Is there a single mother with 6 or 7 children, and maybe her husband, unfortunately, is in prison, and she's trying to survive alone? So, I mean, there's a lot of issues out there that we have to come to bear with. Yes.
You mentioned the responsibility
yes.
of adults. You also said you were disappointed that the presidential candidates have not discussed guns. Would you find Senators Obama and Clinton, presumably Democrats?
Well, I think not just guns, but violence in itself. You know, I mean, there has to be more to the discussion of presidential candidates or anyone in public life about violence in America. We cannot close our eyes to this. I mean, I know other issues are important, but at the same time, violence is something that's going on. I can talk to any mayor, as pointed out, the homicide rate is slowly moving up because maybe economic times, we understand that. I mean, and so that you have to look at that, and I've said this repeatedly. I think violence should be discussed by the media. You're the ones asking all the questions to them. You're asking them whether or not they have what type of shoes they wear, and who's their barber, and who's their hairstylist. The real questions in these debates should be: what about America? What about violence in America? What is taking place? I think that's appropriate.
Mayor, one of your gun bills that was defeated yesterday was the gun lock bill.
Right.
It doesn't seem like there's sufficient buy-in by the people making these decisions just yet.
Well, we always think a gun should be broken down or locked, in a sense that we think maybe you have to tackle by insurance. If someone has a gun in their home, I hope they have a better insurance policy. What insurance policy they have? Maybe we have to look at things differently in regards to you have a responsibility if you have a gun in your home. You have a responsibility if my children come over to your house. Right. You have a responsibility if your child is alone and grab that gun and runs outdoor. And so what we're really trying to protect, the family itself. We're trying to protect what takes place when there's arguments on streets. A child runs home. If he or she has a gun, they run out more likely and use that gun, unfortunately. And that's all we're trying to do is protect not only their family, but protect other children. These bills are defeated, we're going to come back again. It's simple as that.
This session, again, you think they can still be brought back?
Well, I think what we have to do is there's something, fine, we're worried about global climate change. I mean, that being the issue last year, but this violence, gun violence, it's amazing America has not come to grips with this. I don't know what it is. Why haven't we really attached ourselves to gun violence and say enough is enough in America? The number of children we're losing every year, the number of adults we're losing to gun violence, I think it's something that you wonder where America is in 2008.
What did this
Excuse me.
How did this discussion come about? Was this something that you were thinking about with the university, or was the university planning on
when
like this?
Unfortunately, when the young man was killed here, just south of here, by a number of juveniles, and I think an adult was in there, I asked myself the question, okay, what about these young men? Who are they? Did they drop out of elementary school? Did they drop out of high school? Do they have any brothers or sisters? Were they in the juvenile justice system? Who are they? What happened to them? Because if we don't, I said we have to look at it maybe completely different. We have to look at things we've never talked about. And then recently I was with Father Bruce Williams in the back of the yards. He sends 60 young people out to Boys and Girls Town in Nebraska, 60 from the community. I met a young man from the South Side, and he was living partially in their home. They have a home there, and he's going to be going to Boys and Girls Town. And he told me that his father was in prison and his mother has 6 kids, and he got caught in a gang, and he's living in this home, and he's going to be moving there, and he's all excited about going to high school. He's all excited playing football, and he told me that some of the points he's getting, he's making his bed, and he's doing his wash, and he's cleaning his bedroom, and he's volunteering in that. And I just think he's only like 13 years old, and gee, I mean. We have to be able to do more for that young boy. I mean, fine, he is going to Boys and Girls Town, that's fine. But we have to do more. How many other boys and girls that we miss here in Chicago? I really believe in this. I'm passionate about children. We put too many other things above our children. And I think children, to me, should be what we stand for here in the city of Chicago. I've said recently at a meeting, we're the city of flowers, or the city of trees and gardens and all that. I like to maybe change that model, city of children. I really believe that. And when you talk to other mayors in Rio de Janeiro, Mexico City, they're being confronted. Mayors from Africa, they're being confronted with young youthful offenders, much younger than we've ever seen before. And again, I believe that we can do this. We can get the study and research. I really believe we can come up with the pilot programs and implement these as quickly as possible.
Just to follow up on this question.
Murder of the graduate student?
Yes, yeah, it was. Yes.
Just to follow up, and I have to ask this question even though I'm a room full of academics. How does this type of theory translate into change in the streets? This is a complex issue. It involves all aspects of our society. So in the university talking about the theory, how is this going to make a difference?
But first of all, you need the academic, you need the research background. If you don't have that, then you have government going off in tangents. Maybe the prosecutors think we can do it this way. Maybe the social workers think we can do it this way. The police think we can do it this way. We need the research. We need them to say and talk about substantial research in regards to youthful offenders and things like that. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that is part of a good plan. Otherwise, we're just going off on sometimes tangents, and we get there after a year and a half, we find out it doesn't work. And you need that thorough research and evaluation and criticism. That's what you need before you implement a policy.
Mayor, can all of this work, however, if you're unable to tackle what you talked about, the grip that the gun industry has on America?
Well, I'd hope that America will be awakened. They don't realize it's bigger than the federal government. gun manufacturers. It's really gun manufacturers. They're bigger than the federal government. We have separated them. Local, you got state, you got federal, and they're above here. They cannot be sued. You can sue the federal government directly, indirectly. You can sue state, county. You cannot sue the fourth government, and that basically is the gun manufacturer. They're above everyone. Now that is amazing. People don't look at it this way. They're the fourth government.
So can this work, a study like this, and results in particular neighborhoods if you can't defeat that problem?
Oh, I think at the same time we'll work together. I think we're really pointing out constantly how the gun manufacturers have a grip on American society. You would never think of that. You would never think they would have a grip on it.
What's the timetable? What's the timetable here? When will you start this research, and when will you end this research?
What a time. Wait. Okay, Fran. I didn't come up with the idea. I thought that I thought we should basically look at the youthful offenders. I mean, we have to do that. We have to look at it completely different. And juvenile court has to be looked at different, as pointed out. Intervention much earlier, identification of children much earlier, who are maybe victims of crime and eventually become offenders.
And then you approach the university about.
Well, I think a lot of people have been working on this, and so that's what it is.
Okay, here's my question. When will you start this research, and at what point, what's the timetable? When will you come back to us and say, here are the results of what we've learned?
So our aspiration is to try and get something into the field in the summer, or at least before the summer's over.
To start in the summer.
That's our aspiration, but our hope also is this is not just a one-shot deal, so to speak. We really want to try and build a collaboration that has the opportunity to keep doing interventions and really try and figure out what works across a broad array of types of things. So if this is working well, we should have results. Our hope is to have some early results within 6 months, 12 months, for at least some part of the overall strategy of things that we want to do. But we really do hope that this is sustained and continues over time.
Well, also, you have to remember, we've been fighting for a full-day kindergarten. Illinois does not have a full-day kindergarten. When you think of that, we only have half a day, and the Board of Education tries to fill in hours of full-day kindergarten. And also, when you think about our school system, we still give 2 months off during the summer. It's very, very difficult for a single mother. It's very difficult for working families or working mother or grandmother. It's very hard for 2 months for them to become our teachers and everyone else. We go through this cycle every summer, and to allow this many children out, and how important education is to our children is to that. Again, America is not in the forefront of this. We don't have the political willingness to go forward and say, we should basically educate our children throughout the year and during the summer. And because if we don't, then you lose more children to gangs and drugs. And we see that continually. I mean, I've been talking about this for years. And it's amazing. People should be upset with this. We should have a good camp program for every child in America.
That's right.
Because if you don't, you lose children to the streets, and you lose children because of the lack of intervention by an adult during the summer.
Mayor, Dr. Will you be going to the prisons and talking to the people who have pulled the trigger on these crimes?
The question raises an important point. When you look at homicide statistics in the city of Chicago, something like 75 to 80% of the offenders have a prior arrest record, but something like 75% of the victims have a prior arrest record as well. And so I think really understanding what's going on with people who are coming out of detention, that's juvenile and young adults as well, I think has to be an important part of the story to steer people away from the types of activities that put them at risk of both being shot as well as getting shot. So that's clearly got to be a central focus of what we're trying to do.
So that's a yes.
That's a yes, absolutely.
Mayor, if I could ask you a question on a different subject.
No, I understand this. This is too important. This is too important for other. Tomorrow I answer all the. Yesterday I answered all the questions. Tomorrow I answer all your questions. But this topic is too important for us. We want to hold on to this.
Mayor, Dr. Ludwig said that
Yes.
one of the main.
Excuse me.
One of the main factors involved in youth crime is poverty,
Yes.
if I understand that. So what will you do to actually address poverty in terms of income and jobs for youth?
Well, again, what we have, it's not jobs for youth, it's jobs for their parents. It's after-school program for a parent, a single mother that can work and not afraid to put her child, she can't put her child in a half-day program and try to go to work. It's impossible. And so that's why early childhood programs are important. That's why after-school programs are important. In order to rebuild the poverty in America. And basically looking at single mothers and whether or not we're reaching them. That's the other issue eventually I'll be talking about, whether or not we're really reaching those single mothers. We maybe have to look at something completely different in communities where there's high percentage of single mothers who are trying to do a job, but they have 5 or 6 children. And of course, poverty is an issue with them, dealing with food, dealing with health care and issues like that. So that's the other issue we'll be looking at, and whether or not our services are getting to them in the community.
Will this be linked to job opportunities? I mean, if you look at rates of unemployment, I mean, those are
sure,
going up.
Yes. Sure, it's going to be linked for adults. This idea it's going to be very challenging. The programs of the federal government have been cutting off more and more programs for basically poverty programs, and so that we have to look at a whole new avenue with this election in 2008 coming up, a completely different attitude about rebuilding our families and rebuilding our community block by block, and that's what we have to do. And of course, poverty is a huge factor in all of this discussion.
Mayor, how many people will you be interviewing for this, and what is the study?
So all of it, let me just emphasize again, we really, we at the university really think it's just fundamentally important that whatever gets done reflects the input of the city as well as the university. And the planning process, the working group between the city and the university is still ongoing. So all of the specific details of how many people we're going to talk to and exactly what we're going to do and what it's going to cost is going to be unfolding over the next few months.
Who pays for it?
Well, I'll be talking to the business community. I'll be talking to the foundation community, philanthropic community in the city. I will be asking them, because I really believe that this issue, all the foundations have to come together and say, let's hear. All of us have to do a better job. Each one of them serve different purposes in the city, but this is one area that I'll be asking them to basically contribute and fund. Thank you very much.
Thank you.